Hello everyone. Today, I'm going to show you two examples of how to create a salary increase matrix with Excel. In example 1, you will learn how to create a salary increase matrix using a 5-point performance rating scale and 5 categories of the Compa Ratio. The budgeted salary increase will be set at the midpoint, at the mid of the performance rating tree here. In example 2, you will learn how to create a salary matrix using 7-point performance rating scale and 3 categories of Compa Ratio. Here, I will set the budgeted salary increase at the maximum of the rating for performance rating. So a salary increase matrix is also known as a merit matrix. It is a 2-factor table that provides a framework to help managers allocate pay increases to employees. The 2 factors commonly used in a salary increase matrix are the performance rating and the Compa Ratio. Performance rating are usually plotted along the vertical axis of the matrix, while the Compa Ratio are usually plotted along the horizontal side of the matrix. So what is Compa Ratio and how to use it? This is the formula for Compa Ratio. Compa Ratio is an individual's salary divided by the midpoint of the pay band that they are at. Compa Ratio indicates how far an employee's salary is from the midpoint of their pay band. And the midpoint of the pay band is typically the market median salary for that job. So for example, if your salary is 1,000 and the midpoint for your pay band happens to be also 1,000, then your Compa Ratio is 1,000 divided by 1,000, which is 1.0. So a Compa Ratio of 1 means your pay is paid exactly at the midpoint of your pay band. Next, if your salary is $700 and the midpoint of your pay band is $1,000, then your Compa Ratio is 700 divided by 1,000, which is 0.7. A Compa Ratio of 0.7 means that your salary is 70% from the midpoint of your pay band. Now, if your salary is 1,300 and the midpoint of your pay band is 1,000, your Compa Ratio is 1,003 divided by 1,000, which is 1.3. A Compa Ratio of 1.3 means that your salary is 130% from the midpoint of your pay band. Now, let's move on to example 1. In example 1, for the vertical side of the matrix, I use a 5-point performance rating scale with 5 for the high performer and 1 for low performer. On the horizontal side of the matrix, I use 5 categories for the Compa Ratio. A Compa Ratio of 0.8, less than 0.8 means that the employee's pay is less than 80% of the midpoint or market median pay for that job. A Compa Ratio of more than 1.2 means that the employee's pay is 120% from the midpoint or market median pay for that job. The next thing you need to do is to set an anchor point for your salary increase matrix. So this is my salary increase matrix. So in this example 1, I will set my anchor point at 5% at the intersection of performance rating 3 and Compa Ratio 0.9 to 1.2. So at the intersection of this rating 3 and this Compa Ratio, I will set my anchor point at 5%. So to make this anchor point stand out, I've colored it yellow. Now, you need to link all the other cells here, all the other cells in this matrix to this yellow anchor point cell, so that whenever you change this number, every other number here in the matrix will change. So how do we do that? We'll need to set up the percentages in these orange cells first. So first, we set the two cells. All right, let me delete here to show you. So first, we'll set this cell 100%. This cell, we will also set it 100% to align with the anchor point here. So this cell will set 100%, and this cell will set 100%. Next, let's set up the relationship between the performance rating and the pay increase amount. So to do this, we need to set up the relationship between the vertical orange column A and with this yellow anchor point. So here, for the performance rating in column B, for the performance rating here in this column, 5 is for high performer, 1 is for low performer. I want my rating 5 to be given the most pay increase. Hence, I will set it at 150%. Oops, I will set it here. For rating 5, I want it to be 100% of this anchor point for the high performer. Next, my rating 4, I want it to be given the second most pay increase. So I will set it at 125% of this anchor point. And rating 3, just now I've already set it at 100% of this. For rating 2, I will set it at 75% of the anchor point. And rating 1, I will set it to 0% of the anchor point, because the rating 1 is the lowest performer. So this is how we set up the relationship between the performance rating and the pay increase. All right. So 100% means a person rating 3 will get 100% of this 5%, which is 5%. Next, let's set up the relationship between the compound ratio and pay increase. So to do this, we need to set up the relationship between the horizontal orange row, this row 8, with the relationship between this and the yellow anchor point. So a compound ratio of less than 8 means that the employee's pay is less than 80% from the midpoint or the market median pay for that job. I want to give those with less than 0.8 compound ratio more salary increase. Thus, I will set the salary increase here at 120% of the anchor point of this 5%. So next, I want this compound ratio 0.8 to less than 0.9 to be given the second most pay increase. So I will set here at 110% of the anchor point. So for compound ratio 0.9 to 1.1, I have already set it at 100% of this anchor point. Next, I want to set for the compound ratio more than 1.1 to 2 at 90% of, 90%, yeah, 90% of my anchor point. Next, a compound ratio of more than 1.2 means that the employee's pay is more than 120% from the midpoint or market median pay for the job. I will not want to give those who are already paid above market high salary increase. Hence, I will set the salary increase at 80% of the anchor point salary increase percentage. So I will set this at 80% of this 5%. So this is how we set up the relationship between the compound ratio and the pay increase. Oops. All right. Between this and the pay increase. Now, let's start to link all our other recommendations, all this to this anchor point. To do this, in this cell type equal F13 times A11 times D8. All right. So next, so I've typed this formula. So this increment depends on this 150%, this 80%, and this. So these three I have linked it up. Next, I want to log. The anchor point is F13, cell F13, which is this cell. So I want to log this anchor point F13. And to do that, to log it, we need to put a $sign in front of the F and in front of the 13. All right. So this is to log this cell. Next, add a dollar in front of this A11 as well, cell A11, so that when you copy the formula across other cells, the column A, this column A is fixed with only the row number. This column A will fix with only this row number allowed to change. Next, I also want to add a dollar in front of the number 8 so that when you copy the formula across the cells, this row 8 is fixed with only the column number, this column number D. So when you copy here, it changes to F, changes to E, F, G, and H. Only this number will change, but the A, row 8, I want to fix it. So let's hit enter. So you have got the formula. So this formula is where I fix this row, this cell, and I link it to here, this 150% and this 80%. So now that you have set up the formula, we can drag it down and across to copy the formula to other cells. So let's drag it down and you can see the formula, right? And let's drag it across as well. Drag it down, drag it down, drag it down. Then here also drag it down. Let's drag it. All right. So as you can see from this matrix, the higher your rating, the higher the increment. All right. The higher your rating, the higher the increment. And also, the lower your compound ratio means you're paid below market, the higher your increment versus someone who's have a high compound ratio, they'll get lower increment. So this is how the salary increase metrics work. So now if you look at the formula in column D here, you'll notice that the orange column A, this column A, the number is fixed as I've added a $sign there. Only the row number 11 changes because we didn't put a $sign in front of this 11. So if you can see here in this formula, when I drag it down, A remains, this is A11. The next cell, A still remains, just that the number becomes A11, A12. And here, it becomes A13, all right? So A is fixed, only the number changes. Similarly, for this row, you see when I drag this across, the formula here, 8 remains the same, only the alphabet here changes. Look at here, 8 remains the same because I have put a dollar sign to lock the row 8, all right? Okay, the good thing about this salary increase matrix is that everything that you see here has some relationship with this anchor point. Now, if I change this anchor point from 5% to 8%, for example, my salary increase budget, we now have 8%. So if I change this from 5 to 8 and hit enter, you'll notice that every single cell here, the number here changes except for this 0%. Next, if we change the 0% here for rating 1 to 30% instead of 0, let's change it to 30, you will notice that the pay increase percentages for rating 1 changes. All right, let's set this back to 0 and this back to 5%. So, all right, we are done with creating a salary increase matrix for this example 1. Now, let's move on to example 2. In example 2, for the vertical side of the matrix, I'm using a 7-point performance rating scale with 7 for high performer and 1 for the low performer. On the horizontal side of the matrix, I use 3 categories for the Compa ratio. A Compa ratio of 0.8 means the employee's pay is less than 80% from the midpoint or market median pay for that job. A Compa ratio of 1.2 means that the employee's pay is 120% from the midpoint or market median pay for that job. The next thing you need to do is to set the anchor point for your salary increase matrix. So in this example 2, I want to set my anchor point at 5% at the intersection of performance rating 4 and Compa ratio 0. less than 0.8. So I've set it at the intersection of this rating 4 and this less than 0.8 Compa ratio. So to make my anchor point stand out, I have colored it at 5%. So just now in example 1, I set it at the middle of rating 3. Here I set it at the highest point of rating 3. So this is another way how some companies may set up their metrics. Now, I need to link all the other cells within this matrix to this anchor point cell so that whenever I change this number, every other number in the matrix will change. So how do we do that? We need to set up the percentages in these yellow cells. So let's delete this and show you. So first, we'll set the 2 cells, this J14 to 100% of the anchor point, and we will set this cell to 100% of the anchor point as well. So it is these two rows and columns that intersect this 5% anchor point that I want to set it to 100%. Next, similar to this, I want to set up the relationship between the performance rating and the pay increase. So to do this, we need to set up these vertical orange columns, set up the relationship between these orange columns to this with this yellow anchor point. In column L, 7 is for high performer, 1 is for low performer. I want my rating 7 to be given the most pay increase. So for example, I will set this to 130% of the anchor point. And rating 6, I want it to be given the second most increase. So I'll set it to 120% of the anchor point. And I want my rating 5, all right, to be given the third most increase. So I'll set it to 110% of the anchor point. And rating 4, I have earlier set it to 100% of the anchor point. Rating 3, I'll set it to 90%. Rating 2, I will set it to 80%. And rating 1, I'll set it to 0% of the anchor point, as this is the lowest performer. All right, so this is how we set up the relationship between performance rating and pay increase. Next, let's set up the relationship between the compound ratio and pay increase. So to do this, we need to set up the relationship for the horizontal orange rows to this yellow anchor point. A compound ratio of less than 0.8 means the employee's pay is less than 80% from the midpoint or market median pay for that job. I want to give those with less than 0.8 compound ratio more salary increase because they are paid at the low end of the market. Hence, I will set the salary increase for this at 100%. I'm going to set this as the highest compared to all this, all right? So I'll set this at 100% of the anchor point. Next, I want the compound ratio 0.8 to 1.2 to be given the second most increase. So I'll set it at 90% of the anchor point. And this compound ratio more than 1.2 means that the employee's pay is more than 120% from the midpoint or market median pay for the job. I will not want to give those who are already paid above market high salary increase. Hence, I will set the salary increase at 80% of this anchor point salary increase percentage. So this is how we set up the relationship between the compound ratio and pay increase. Now let's start to link up all our other recommendations with this anchor point. To do this, at this cell here, type equals to this cell. Okay, you can click here, equals to this cell, multiply by this cell, and multiply by this cell. And then we'll hit enter. Now I want to lock this cell, this yellow cell. To lock it, I can click here and then press Ctrl F4 in my keyboard. I can either, okay, I press Ctrl function F4. Oops, hold on. Hold on. You can put the dollar sign here, all right? And this is how you lock the cell. All right. So I have locked the cell with the dollar sign here, 014. And then we hit the enter key. Next, I also want to add a dollar sign in front of this J11 here, so that when I copy this formula across the cells, the column J here, I want to fix this column, is fixed with only the row number changing from row 11, row 12, all this. Next, I also want to add a dollar in front of the number 8. so that when I copy the formula across, the orange row 8 remains the same. Only the column changes from M to N to O. All right. This one I allow you to change, but the 8 I want to fix it. And I hit enter. Now that we have set up this formula, we can drag it down and drag it across to copy the formula to the other cells. All right, so I have dragged it across. So as you can see from here, the lower the rating, the lower your increment. But as your performance ratings go higher, your increment increases. For every column is the same. All right. And also when you have for the same rating 7, if you have a low compile ratio, you will get more increment versus when you have a high compile ratio. So it's the same for every column. All right. So the good thing about this salary increase matrix is that everything you see here has some relationship with the anchor point. Now, if I change this anchor point from 5% to 9%, you will notice that every cell here changes except for this 0. So if I change this 0% for rating 1 to 50%, the vertical orange column in here, you'll notice that the pay increase for percentages for rating 1 has changed. So let's set this back to 0 and this to 5%. So you can play with these metrics. Now that you have built this, you can change all these percentages. Like you can give, for example, you want to give a rating 7 more, you can put it at 150% and you will changes accordingly. Or if you manage to secure a higher budget for increment from 5% to 6%, you can change it to 6%, and all the number changes. So okay, that's it. This is your salary increase. This is your salary increase metrics. Thanks for watching Excel Tricks by the HR Diary. If you are not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so that you'll get notified about similar videos that we upload. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the HR Diary channel. See you.